The year was 1901, and the world stood on the edge of a new era. Empires expanded, technology advanced, and war loomed over the untamed frontiers. In a disputed region between two powerful nations, tensions had finally erupted into open conflict. The once quiet forests had become a battleground, where soldiers fought not only the enemy, but the elements themselves. Captain William Hayes rode at the head of his column, his eyes scanning the trees for any sign of movement. The men under his command, 200 strong, marched in silence, their rifles slung over their shoulders. They had been ordered to secure a strategic outpost deep in the wilderness, but every step forward felt like an invitation to an ambush. Sergeant Nathan Grayson, his most trusted aide, pulled his horse alongside Hayes. "Sir, scouts report movement up ahead. Could be another patrol." Hayes nodded, gripping the reins tighter. "Or an ambush. Either way, we need to be ready." The first skirmish. As they approached a narrow pass between two rocky cliffs, the first shots rang out. Bullets whizzed through the trees, cutting down two men before anyone had a chance to react. "Take cover," Hayes shouted, drawing his revolver. The battalion scrambled behind boulders and fallen logs as the enemy continued their assault. Muzzle flashes lit up the shadows, revealing enemy soldiers hidden among the trees. Hayes crouched behind a rock, firing carefully at the attackers. Grayson, beside him, reloaded with practiced efficiency. "They've got the high ground," a lieutenant shouted. Hayes knew they had to break free before they were completely surrounded. "Fix bayonets. On my command, we charge." The men steeled themselves, gripping their rifles as Hayes gave the signal. With a battle cry, they surged forward. The enemy, caught off guard, fell back. The clash was brutal. Bayonets met flesh, rifles cracked, and men fought desperately. Within minutes, the enemy retreated deeper into the woods, leaving behind bodies and scattered weapons. Breathing heavily, Hayes surveyed the aftermath. They had won the skirmish, but at a cost. 10 men dead, many more wounded. "Patch the wounded up," he ordered. "We press on." Into the wilderness. For days, they advanced cautiously, navigating dense forests, winding rivers, and treacherous terrain. Supplies ran low, and morale wavered. The enemy was always nearby, watching, waiting. At night, distant gunfire echoed through the trees, a constant reminder that they were never truly safe. One evening, as they rested in a clearing, a scout returned with grim news. "Sir, there's an enemy encampment a few miles from here, heavily fortified. If we keep moving, we risk walking right into them." Hayes considered his options. They could try to avoid the enemy, but that would mean days of detours and exhaustion. Or they could strike first. "We attack before dawn," he decided. "A quick assault, before they know we're coming." The night raid. In the pre-dawn darkness, the battalion crept toward the enemy camp. The sentries barely had time to react before Hayes' men descended upon them. The attack was swift and merciless. Gunfire erupted, blades flashed, and chaos engulfed the camp. Hayes fought through the smoke and fire, his revolver emptying shot after shot. He saw Grayson locked in combat with an enemy officer and rushed to help. Together, they dispatched the man, his body collapsing into the mud. By sunrise, the camp was theirs. Supplies, weapons, and crucial intelligence had been seized. But the victory was bittersweet. More men had been lost, and Hayes knew the enemy would soon retaliate. A desperate stand. Days later, as they neared their objective, disaster struck. A massive enemy force had been tracking them, waiting for the right moment to strike. The battalion found itself surrounded in a valley, with nowhere to run. "We hold the line," Hayes shouted. "Make every bullet count." The battle raged for hours. Smoke and gunfire filled the air as bodies fell on both sides. Hayes fought with everything he had, his uniform stained with blood and dirt. Grayson was beside him, his rifle never stopping. Then, a bullet found Hayes' leg. He collapsed, pain searing through him. Grayson pulled him behind cover, pressing a cloth against the wound. "We can't hold much longer," a soldier cried. Hayes gritted his teeth. "Then we die fighting." Just as the enemy prepared for a final charge, distant bugles rang out. Reinforcements. The enemy hesitated, then fell back as fresh troops stormed the valley. The battle had been won, but at a terrible cost. Epilogue. Weeks later, as Hayes recovered in a field hospital, he reflected on the campaign. They had secured the outpost, but at what cost? So many lives lost, so many futures shattered. Grayson sat beside him. "You did what you had to, sir. We all did." Hayes nodded, but the weight of war would never leave him. The frontier had been tamed, but the shadows of battle would haunt him forever.